This is Nation Builders, information on some of the builders of the modern Bahamas. Sir Milo Butler was the first Governor General of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Born on August 11th, 1906, Sir Milo became interested in the political affairs of the country in the early 1930s, when he supported and worked in the political campaigns of the late A.F. Adderley. In 1937, Sir Milo ran for the House of Assembly for the Western District. He was defeated by the late Sahari Oaks. After Sahari was elevated to the Legislative Council, Sir Milo contested the seat in the by-election of 1939. This time, he was successful. Milo Butler was a member of the House of Assembly from 1939 to 1949 and from 1956 to 1972. Sir Milo served in the Progressive Liberal Party government as Minister of Health and Welfare, Minister of Labor and Welfare, and Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries. Sir Milo was appointed Governor General Designate in 1973. He served as Governor General of the Bahamas from August 1973 until his death on the 22nd of January 1979. Sir Lynden O. Pindling, Father of the Nation, was the most successful politician in the history of the Bahamas. He, more than anyone else, had a lifetime opportunity to mold an entire society. He is inextricably linked to the Bahamian nationhood, to the foundation of our national character, to the expansion of the Bahamian economy, and to the development of an educated, informed, and stable electorate. An outstanding statesman, Sir Lynden Pindling was born on March 22, 1930. He was first elected to the House of Assembly in 1956 and became leader of the Progressive Liberal Party that same year. He was appointed Premier in 1967, but following a constitutional change, he became Prime Minister in 1969. Lynden Pindling led his party to election victories in 6 consecutive elections and served 41 consecutive years as a member of the House of Assembly until his resignation from the House and frontline politics on July 9, 1997. This brought an end to a political era in the Bahamas. Sir Lynden Pindling's government transformed the Bahamas from a sleepy, racially and economically divided society ruled by a minority white government into a modern, independent, globally aware country, which is the envy of our region. His political agenda, implemented through the enactment of over 600 pieces of legislation, created the political framework of the Bahamas as we know it today. On January 1st, 1983, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II elevated him to the rank of Knight Commander of the Order of St. Michael and St. George. The nation mourned his passing on August 26, 2000. Arthur Dion Hanna is one of the last original founding fathers of the modern Bahamas. Mr. Hanna has had a long and distinguished career in Bahamian politics. He was elected to the House of Assembly 7 times in 1962, 67, 68, 1972, 77, 1982, and 87. Mr. Hanna served as Deputy Prime Minister from 1968 to 1984. He also served as Minister of Education, Minister of Trade and Industry, Minister of Home Affairs, and Minister of Finance with responsibility for the public service. A lawyer by profession, Arthur D. Hanna was appointed Governor General of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on the 1st of February 2006 by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II on the advice of Prime Minister Perry Christie. He retired on April 14th, 2012 and was succeeded by Sir Arthur Foulkes. Sir Arthur Foulkes is a journalist by profession. Born on 11th May 1928, Sir Arthur was the founding editor of the Bahamian Times. This newspaper played a pivotal role in the campaign for majority rule, which was achieved in 1967. He drafted the PLP's petition on decolonization to the United Nations Committee and was a member of the delegation which presented the petition in 1965. He was also a dissident aide and one of the founders of the Free National Movement. Sir Arthur was one of 4 opposition delegates who attended the Bahamas Independence Constitutional Conference in London in 1972. Sir Arthur served as Minister of Communications and Minister of Tourism in the first PLP government. He was appointed to the Senate in 1972 and was re-elected as an F&M MP in 1982. Arthur Foulkes entered the diplomatic service in 1992 and has served as a High Commissioner and an Ambassador. He was made a Knight Commander of the Order of St. Michael and St. George by Her Majesty the Queen in 2002. He served as Governor General of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas from 2010 to 2014.
Dame Dr. Doris Johnson. Dame Dr. Doris Johnson was a Bahamian teacher, suffragette, and politician. She was the first Bahamian to contest an election in the Bahamas and the first female Senate appointee. Once in the legislature, she was the first woman to be made a government minister, serving as Minister of Transport. She was the first woman to be elected President of the Senate. She was also the first woman to serve as acting Governor General of the Bahamas. Dame Doris led the Bahamas female suffrage movement, which demanded electoral changes, specifically the right for women to vote. In 1979, she was named Dame Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Dame Dr. Doris Johnson died on the 21st of June, 1983. The Doris Johnson Senior High School was posthumously dedicated in her honor in 2002.
Orville Turnquest was born in Grantstown on July 19, 1929. He studied law in the chambers of the Honorable A.F. Adderley from 1947 to 1953. He was called to the Bahamas Bar in 1953 and to the English Bar in July 1960. He served as Secretary General of the Progressive Liberal Party from 1960 to 1962 and was elected member of the House of Assembly for the South Central constituency of New Providence until 1967. On January 2nd, 1997, he was knighted by Her Majesty the Queen and ascended to the high office of Governor General of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Dame Ivy Dumont. Dame Ivy Dumont was the 6th Governor General of the Bahamas. Dame Ivy previously served in the Ministry of Education as a classroom teacher, head teacher, education officer, and Deputy Director of Education. She was also Deputy Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Works and Utilities. She was appointed to the Senate in 1992 and sworn in as the Minister of Health and Environment. From 1995 to 1999, Dame Ivy Dumont served as Minister of Education and as Minister of Education and Youth until 2001. On the 1st of January 2002, Dame Ivy was appointed the first female Governor General of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Dame Marguerite Pindling. Her Excellency Dame Marguerite Pindling has been a loyal servant of her beloved Bahamas for almost 60 years. The widow of Sir Lynden Pindling, the founding father of the independent Bahamas, Dame Marguerite was sworn in as Governor General of the Bahamas on the 8th of July 2014. Throughout her husband's tenure as Premier and then Prime Minister, Dame Marguerite gave him and his party her determined, energetic, and loyal support. However, as Governor General, she has cast aside party loyalties and is totally politically neutral. Dame Marguerite believes that there is no greater duty that a Governor General can have than to bring the Bahamian people together in love, unity, and common purpose.
Sir Cecil Wallace-Whitfield has been described as a national hero. A noted attorney at law, he was previously a custom officer. Sir Cecil was chairman of the Progressive Liberal Party and played a pivotal role in the planning and execution of the 1967 general elections. In 1970, he led the dissident 8 out of the PLP as Free PLPs and became the founding leader of the Free National Movement. In the first administration of the PLP government, Cecil Wallace-Whitfield served as Minister of Works and later Minister of Education. He was first elected to the House of Assembly in 1967 for the St. Agnes constituency and served there until 1972. He was re-elected in 1982 and served as the Member of Parliament for Pine Ridge, Grand Bahama until 1987 when he was elected Member of Parliament for Marco City and served until his death in 1990. Sir Cecil was knighted by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II in 1989 for dedicated service to the Bahamian people as a Member of Parliament, a government minister, and opposition leader. Sir Cecil Wallace-Whitfield died on May 11, 1990. The Right Honourable Hubert A. Ingraham was the second Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. A lawyer by profession, Mr. Ingraham was called to the Bahamas Bar in December of 1972. He entered private practice and became senior partner of Christie, Ingraham and Company. Mr. Ingraham entered frontline politics in 1975 when he was elected to the National General Council of the Progressive Liberal Party. He became chairman of the PLP in 1976. First elected to the House of Assembly in 1977 as the representative for the Cooperstown Abaco constituency, he was re-elected on 6 consecutive occasions for that constituency. In 1982, Mr. Ingraham was appointed to the Cabinet of the Bahamas as Minister of Housing and National Insurance. He was dismissed from the Cabinet in 1984 and expelled from the PLP in 1986. Mr. Ingraham joined the Free National Movement in 1990 and was elected leader of the party that same year, therefore becoming leader of the official opposition. On August 19, 1992, Mr. Ingraham led the FNM to a general election victory over the Progressive Liberal Party. In 1993, he was made a member of Her Majesty's Privy Council. Mr. Ingraham was sworn in as Prime Minister for a second term on March 18, 1997. He led the Free National Movement to victory once again in May 2007, serving as Prime Minister for a third term until May of 2012. Perry Gladstone Christie spent 40 years in politics in the Bahamas. He formally entered politics when he was appointed to the Senate in 1975. He was first elected to the Parliament of the Bahamas in 1977. A protege of the late Sir Lynden Pindling, Mr. Christie was then appointed in the Cabinet as Minister of Health and National Insurance. He has also served as Minister of Tourism and Minister of Agriculture, Trade and Industry. In 1993, he became co-deputy leader of the Progressive Liberal Party and 4 years later was elected PLP leader. Between 1997 and 2002, he served as leader of the official opposition. Later, in 2002, Mr. Christie masterminded the landslide victory for the Progressive Liberal Party and became the third Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, serving until 2007, when the PLP won general elections in May of 2012. Mr. Christie served again as Prime Minister until May of 2017. Sir Franklyn Wilson is one of the Bahamas' most successful entrepreneurs, having built his extensive business empire over the course of 40-plus years. A chartered accountant by profession, Sir Franklyn heads a series of companies ranging from Arawak Homes, the country's largest housing developer, Sunshine Finance, Sun Oil Company, and the Cotton Bay Resort Development. Having won a seat in Parliament in 1972 as a candidate of the Progressive Liberal Party, Sir Franklyn served in the Parliament for 5 years before withdrawing from active frontline politics. Sir Franklyn also established the Junior Achievement Organization in the Bahamas and served as chairman for 10 years. In 2003, Sir Franklyn received the honor of Companion of the Order of St. Michael's and St. George from Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, and he was subsequently knighted.
Lady Sharon Wilson. Lady Sharon Wilson began her career as a teacher and served as head of the English departments at Jordan Prince William Baptist High School and St. John's College. She was called to the Bahamas Bar in 1983. She has served as a circuit magistrate, senior magistrate, and acting chief magistrate in the judicial system of the Bahamas. Mrs. Wilson went on to become the second woman in the history of the Bahamas to serve as president of the Senate. Today, she heads one of the leading law firms in the Bahamas. She has also been recognized for her extensive social contributions.
Dr. Bernard J. Nottage devoted his entire life to serving the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. As a medical doctor, he was the senior registrar in obstetrics and gynecology in 1974. He also served as president of the Medical Association of the Bahamas from 1978 to 1980. In 1987, he was elected to Parliament as the PLP representative for Garden Hills. He was elected representative for the Kennedy constituency in 1992 and in 1997, serving until May 2002. He was appointed to the cabinet of the Bahamas in 1989 as Minister of Consumer Affairs. From 1990 to 1992, he served as Minister of Education. In November 2005, he was appointed a senator for the Progressive Liberal Party, and in February 2006 was appointed Minister of Health. Dr. Nottage also served as Minister of National Security from 2012 to 2017. Dr. Nottage died on June 28, 2017.
Dame Anita Allen. Dame Anita Allen became a Justice of the Supreme Court of the Bahamas in 1995 and was elevated to Senior Justice in 2005. She has also served as Acting Chief Justice in 2007. In November of 2010, she succeeded Dame Joan Sawyer as President of the Court of Appeal. She thus became the second woman to hold that post and the third woman in a high position in the judiciary of the Bahamas. She was appointed Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire in the Queen's 2016 New Year's Honours.
Sir Arlington Butler was the first Speaker of the House of Assembly in an independent Bahamas. He was an attorney, sportsman, educator, and former Member of Parliament. Between 1964 and 1966, Mr. Butler was appointed a master at Government High School. He resigned to enter politics as a candidate for the Progressive Liberal Party in 1967. While he was unsuccessful in 1967, he was successful in the snap election in 1968. He was elected and served as Speaker of the House of Assembly until 1977, earning the distinction of being the first speaker in an independent Bahamas. In 1977, Mr. Butler severed his relationship with the Progressive Liberal Party. He won the Salem seat for the Free National Movement in 1992 and became a cabinet minister. He served as Minister of Public Works and Minister of Immigration. He also served as Chairman of the Gaming Board and Chairman of the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas. In addition, he was President of the Bahamas Olympic Association and the Commonwealth National Olympic Committee. Sir Arlington Butler was knighted in 1996 by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. He died November 9, 2017 at the age of 79.
Allyson Maynard-Gibson. Mrs. Allyson Maynard-Gibson is a Bahamian barrister, politician, and community rights advocate, particularly with regard to laws affecting women and children. She is the third child and only daughter of the late Sir Clement and Lady Zoe Maynard. A former member of Parliament for the Pinewood constituency, she served as the Bahamas' first Minister of Financial Services and Investments in the Progressive Liberal Party administration from 2002 to 2007. From 2012 to 2017, she was Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs of the Bahamas and Leader of Government Business in the Senate.
Paul Lawrence Adderley was born to Alfred Francis Adderley, CBE, and Ethel M.L. Adderley on 15th August 1928. He was the first Attorney General of an independent Bahamas and one of the longest-serving Attorneys General in the history of the Bahamas, serving from July 10, 1973 to January 18, 1989. Celebrated as one of the most brilliant lawyers of his time, Mr. Adderley was called to both the Bahamas and English bars in 1953. He served the Bahamas not only as Attorney General, but also as Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Education, Minister of National Security, and Minister of Finance. During his tenure in frontline politics, Mr. Adderley was the Member of Parliament for the St. Michael's constituency. He retired from frontline politics prior to the 1997 general elections, and Mr. Adderley died on 19th September 2012 at the age of 84. Sir Baltron B. Bethel is one of the Bahamas' longest-serving and most respected public servants. Sir Baltron's major contributions have been in the areas of education, where he championed the virtues of broadening the reach of schools and colleges to all Bahamians, and within the tourism industry, where his expertise helped to grow the industry into the mainstay of today's Bahamian economy. His vast experience in tourism stretches back to 1978, when he was first appointed Director General of Tourism. He held this position until May of 1992. A past chairman of the Caribbean Tourism Organization and Chief Executive Officer of the Hotel Corporation of the Bahamas, Sir Baltron most recently served as Senior Policy Advisor and Tourism Development Consultant in the administration of former Prime Minister Perry G. Christie. Sir William C. Allen is a former Minister of Finance and Member of Parliament for the Montague constituency. He served as a cabinet minister from 1992 to 2002. Born in Nassau, March 15, 1937, Sir William began his public service career in 1970 as a research manager of the Bahamas Monetary Authority. In 1973, he was appointed to chair the committee to establish the national flag carrier Bahamas Air. Mr. Allen served as chairman of Bahamas Air from 1973 to 1980. He was appointed governor of the Central Bank of the Bahamas in 1980 and served until his retirement in 1987. In 1992, Mr. Allen rejoined the public sector with his appointment to the Senate and served as Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance and Planning, and later as Minister of Planning and Public Service. He served in the Senate from 1992 to 1994 and was elected to Parliament on November 10, 1994, when he was appointed Minister of Finance. He continued as Minister of Finance until 2002. On January 1st, 2000, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II conferred on Mr. Allen the distinguished honor of Knight Commander of the Order of St. Michael and St. George. T. Baswell Donaldson was a Bahamian politician, banker, economist, and diplomat. In 1962, Mr. Donaldson launched his career as the Assistant Secretary at the Ministry of Finance. In 1992, he served as an economic advisor to the Bahamian government during the Independence Conference in London. Mr. Donaldson became the first founding governor of the Central Bank of the Bahamas upon its establishment in 1974. He remained governor of the Central Bank of the Bahamas until 1980. Mr. Donaldson was appointed as both the Bahamian ambassador to the United States of America and permanent representative to the Organization of American States in Washington, D.C. in 1992. He simultaneously served as non-resident ambassador of the Bahamas to Colombia and Mexico. He later served as chairman of the Securities Commission. In 2007, Mr. Donaldson became the chairman of the College Council of the College of the Bahamas. Mr. Donaldson died on February 26, 2013. Sir Geoffrey Johnstone was born in Nassau, Bahamas on the 19th September 1927. He was called to the Bar of England and Wales at the Middle Temple in June of 1950 and was called to the Bahamas Bar in August 1950. Mr. Johnstone joined the firm Higgs & Johnson and was admitted to partnership in 1952. He became senior partner in 1968 and served in that capacity until his retirement in December 1998. He served as president and vice president of the Bahamas Bar Association at various times. He was elected to the House of Assembly for the Eastern District of New Providence in November 1962 and served that constituency until January 1967, when he was returned as a Member of Parliament for the Montague constituency, where he served until September 1972. Geoffrey Johnstone served as leader of the United Bahamian Party, and he was a Minister of Road Traffic and Records from January 1964 to 1967. In February 1970, he was appointed leader of the opposition and served in that office until July 1971. He served as chairman of the Hotel Corporation of the Bahamas from October 1992 to December 1994. He also served as deputy to the Governor General of the Bahamas on various occasions. In July 1995, he was appointed non-resident ambassador of the Bahamas to Chile, Argentina, and Uruguay. Mr. Johnstone was appointed a companion of the Most Distinguished Order of St. Michael and St. George by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II on December 31st, 1993, and he was made a Knight Commander of the Most Distinguished Order of St. Michael and St. George on the 31st December 2001. Sir Geoffrey Johnstone passed away on August 4th, 2017. Sir Michael L. Barnett is the 10th Chief Justice of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. For almost 9 years, he occupied the very demanding role of managing the country's legal system. Sir Michael was called to the English and Bahamas bars in 1978 and served as a partner in the law firm of Graham Thompson and Company. And before that, he worked with Deltec Banking Corporation. Sir Michael served in many professional and public service capacities, including acting magistrate, acting judge of the Supreme Court, and president of the Bahamas Bar Association. Sir Michael was sworn in as Chief Justice on August 24, 2009 in a ceremony at Government House. James Smith is a former senator of the Bahamas and a former Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance. Prior to that, he served as the Bahamas Ambassador for Trade in the Office of the Prime Minister. Between 1987 and 1997, James Smith served as Governor of the Central Bank of the Bahamas. Mr. Smith has also served as a Permanent Secretary for Revenue in the Ministry of Finance, where he was actively involved in the development of fiscal policy. Mr. Smith has been a member of the board of several companies, including the Bahamas Stock Exchange. In 2000, he was named Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, and he is a Justice of the Peace. Sean McQueenie, QC, has exerted profound influence on the political landscape of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas for several decades. Mr. McQueenie is a partner in the law firm Graham Thompson and Company. He was called to the Bahamas Bar on March 29, 1978. The following year, he was elected Honorary Secretary of the Bahamas Bar Association. He also served as Vice Chairman of the Bar Association and Bar Council. In 1984, Mr. McQueenie was elected National Chairman of the Progressive Liberal Party. In 1985, he was appointed to the Senate, where he sat for 7 years. In 1991, he was made Leader of Government Business in the Senate. In January 1989, Sean McQueenie was appointed Attorney General of the Bahamas, a position he held for over 3 years. He engineered many major improvements in the administration of justice during his service as Attorney General. In 1998, on the occasion of the 25th anniversary of Bahamian independence, Mr. McQueenie was awarded the Silver Jubilee Medal for outstanding contribution to national development in the area of law. He was appointed Queen's Counsel in October 2009. Sir Randol F. Fawkes, the father of Labour, was born on March 20th, 1924. He was called to the Bahamas Bar in April 1948 and was knighted in June 1977. During the 1940s and 1950s, Sir Randol was at the vanguard of almost every progressive movement in the Bahamas. He became a member of the Progressive Liberal Party in 1955 and was elected to the House of Assembly in 1956. In January 1958, as president of the Bahamas Federation of Labor, Sir Randol led a general strike that resulted in major constitutional and labor reforms. In June 1961, Sir Randol successfully piloted through the House of Assembly a bill that established Labor Day, which is celebrated on the first Friday in June. For this and many other victories on behalf of the oppressed, he has been called the father of the free trade union movement. Sir Randol Fawkes died on June 15, 2000. Sir Clement Maynard holds the distinction of having been the longest-serving Minister of Tourism in the Bahamas. Born on September 11, 1928, he was the only person to have been appointed to serve in every cabinet of the Bahamas between 1967 and 1992. Throughout his tenure in the cabinet, in addition to Minister of Tourism, Sir Clement served as Minister of Public Works, Minister of Labour and Home Affairs, Minister of Health, Minister for Public Personnel, and Minister of Foreign Affairs. He was appointed Deputy Prime Minister in 1985 and held that position until 1992. Under his direction as Minister, Bahamian tourism became a year-round industry. Other significant achievements during Sir Clement's tenure as Minister of Tourism were the creation of the successful It's Better in the Bahamas campaign and the establishment of the national fly carrier Bahamas Air. Sir Clement died on the 2nd October 2009. Born on the 2nd of November 1917, Sir Durward Knowles was a sailor and Olympic champion for the Bahamas. He won the gold medal in the star class in the 1964 Summer Olympics in Tokyo, Japan, together with Cecil Cook. He won the bronze medal in the same class in 1956 in the Summer Olympics in Melbourne, Australia. Representing the Bahamas, Sir Durward Knowles also won gold in the 1959 Pan American Games in the star class. Sir Durward was also involved in many charitable and civic organizations. He was director and president of the Bahamas Association for the Physically Disabled for 20 years. In 1996, he was knighted by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II for outstanding contributions to the Bahamas and was awarded the Bahamas Order of Merit. Sir Durward Knowles died on the 24th of February 2018 at the age of 100. Brian Marie, QC, is one of the most esteemed and respected litigators throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. He is the senior partner in the firm McKinney, Bancroft & Hughes, which is one of the big four Bahamian law firms. Born in Nassau, he was privately educated at King's College, southwestern England. He returned to Nassau in 1973 to join the law firm where he presently remains, and he remained throughout his legal career. Mr. Murray was made a Queen's Counsel in 2011 in recognition of his formidable skills as a top Bahamian litigator. Frederick Roy Smith was born in Haiti in 1956. He was born a British subject and in 1973 became a Bahamian citizen. In his formative years, he lived in Haiti and the Bahamas and later schooled and went to college in England and lived in the Bahamas, where he currently resides since 1977. He graduated from law school in London in 1977. He was a member of Lincoln's Inn. Mr. Smith has been admitted to practice at the Bar of England, Wales, and the Bahamas, and has been in active practice since July 1977. He was admitted to the Inner Bar of the Bahamas and appointed one of Her Majesty's Queen's Counsel in 2009. He has had an extensive practice in human rights, constitutional and administrative law, personal injury, among other things. In addition, he has had a wide-ranging and extensive practice in commercial and transactional law. He is the managing partner of the oldest law firm in the Bahamas, Calendars & Co. in Freeport. His practice is currently exclusively in civil litigation matters. Mr. Smith also practiced before the lower civil and criminal courts, administrative boards, and various tribunals at the bars of the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, and the Privy Council in London. Lowell J. Mortimer has a professional career which is divided between his law practice and his shipping company. He has been described as one of the country's leading philanthropists. Mr. Mortimer began his career as a teacher, but after 6 years he decided to change course and moved to the United Kingdom to study law. He was called to the British and Bahamian bars in 1972 and 73 respectively. Today, Mr. Mortimer has a small but highly respected law firm and is president of Campbell's Shipping, which operates a fleet of 16 ships. The company arose out of his 20-year association with one of the world's great ship designers, George Campbell. In the 2009 Queen's Birthday Honours, Mr. Mortimer was designated Distinguished Officer of the British Empire OBE for his contributions to nation building, particularly for service to the church and community. Bradley Roberts is a businessman and former national chairman of the Progressive Liberal Party. He gained work experience at the Bahamas Telecommunications Company and Caribbean Motors before entering the beverage industry, where he was a senior executive for 37 years. He became the president of Burns House Limited at the age of 29. He has been a director of several major local businesses, including Burns House, Commonwealth Brewery, Bethel Robertson, Arawak Homes, Eleuthera Properties, Sunshine Holdings, and Freeport Oil Company. Mr. Roberts entered frontline politics in 1977. He served as the Member of Parliament for Bain and Grandstown from 1992 to 2007. He has served as Minister of Works and Utilities, having had responsibility for all of the utility companies. He has also acted as Prime Minister on several occasions. Mr. Roberts announced his departure from frontline politics in October 2017. Albert Joel Miller was born on the 23rd of February 1926 on Long Island. He attended public school at McCann's, Long Island, and received private tutoring from the Benedictine monks at St. Augustine's College in New Providence. He joined the Bahamas Police Force in 1943 and rose through the ranks to the position of Deputy Commissioner in 1968. He resigned 3 years later in 1971, having acted as Commissioner on 5 occasions. In 1974, he joined the Bahamas Amusement as Vice President and was later promoted to President. In 1976, he was appointed President of the Grand Bahama Port Authority, a position he held for 12 years until he was elevated to co-chairman. Sir Albert retired from the Port Authority in March of 2003. For his exemplary service to the Royal Bahamas Police Force, he was made a member of the British Empire in 1963. He received the Queen's Police Medal in 1970, was made a Lieutenant of the Royal Victorian Order in 1996. In 2002, he was knighted by the Queen and made Knight Commander of the Most Distinguished Order of St. Michael and St. George. Sir Albert Miller died on August 18, 2015.
Janet G. Bostwick. The second woman to hold a cabinet post in the Bahamas, Janet Bostwick has been a champion of women's rights in the Bahamas. She was the first female Minister of Foreign Affairs and the first female Attorney General. Elected to Parliament for the first time in 1982 on the Free National Movement's ticket, Mrs. Bostwick was re-elected on 3 consecutive occasions. She has also held the cabinet portfolios of Minister of Social Services, National Insurance and Housing, and Minister of Justice and Immigration. Called to the Bahamas Bar in 1971, Janet Bostwick has served as president of the Bahamas Bar Association. She has had a distinguished career as a prosecutor, defense attorney, and is an expert in family law.
Sir Garrett Tiger Finlayson has had a successful business career which has spanned over a half a century. One of the Bahamas' most successful businessmen, Sir Garrett, the son of a tailor, rose from nothing to establish a multi-million-dollar business empire. He is widely regarded as the Bahamas' leading black entrepreneur, a man who has inspired and enabled a generation since independence. As the Bahamas faced independence in 1973, Sir Garrett was busy building businesses, and in doing so, showing his fellow Bahamians what could be achieved with an independence of spirit, courage, and determination. Garrett Tiger Finlayson also owned and operated many businesses. Among them are Business Systems Limited, followed by General Bahamian Company, West Bay Hotel. He further diversified his business enterprises by acquiring an automobile dealership and the Cole Thompson chain of pharmacies. In 1987, in partnership with Guinness and Heineken, he opened Commonwealth Brewery and launched the popular Bear Collect. His involvement in the liquor business was not confined to Commonwealth Brewery, as he became the leading liquor merchant in the Bahamas as a result of his ownership of Butler & Sands, Burns House, and Bethel Robertson Company Limited. Sir Garrett later acquired Solomon Mines and Pipe of Peace. He was knighted in 2007 by Her Majesty the Queen for his outstanding contribution to business and commerce in the Bahamas. Mr. Enoch Pedro Roberts II was a pioneer in the pharmaceutical industry of the Bahamas and a noted businessman. A keen student of the sciences, Mr. Roberts studied at Tuskegee University and Temple University. He later became an apprentice at Mercy Douglas Hospital and the Templeton University Hospital. He graduated from Templeton University in 1961 with a degree in pharmacy. In January 1962, Mr. Roberts returned to the Bahamas and worked as a senior pharmacist in the Princess Margaret Hospital. He was later promoted to chief pharmacist, a position he held until his retirement in 1987. Mr. Roberts also acted as Director of Materials Management in the Ministry of Health and was a tutor in the School of Nursing. His love for medicine, pharmacy, and community led him to establish a business in 1987. In 1990, he established Commonwealth Drugs, a wholesale medical supplies business. This was closely followed by the opening of Sparkle Wash Laundromats in 1997. Mr. Roberts died on December 22, 2005. Hilbert B. Pinder was born at Pinder's Point, Long Island on December 18, 1918. He worked in World War II as head of a corps of engineers. After the war, Mr. Pinder started the first rock crushing business in the Bahamas. After selling that business, he allocated his time and knowledge to farming chicken eggs in Eleuthera, Andros, Abaco, and New Providence. In 1993, he started Rocky Farms Nursery, which was one of the leading nurseries in New Providence. Hilbert Pinder passed away on November 13, 2011 at the age of 92. This is Nation Builders, information on some of the builders of the modern Bahamas.